In the 1960s and 1970s, a terrifying figure haunted Northern California. His name? The Zodiac Killer. He was not like any other criminal. Instead of running from the law, he seemed to play games with them. He sent letters to newspapers and even called the police. His messages were full of puzzles and strange codes, making people wonder if he was trying to get caught, or if he just enjoyed the attention. This killer was different from others. He didn't just murder people, he wanted the world to know about it. He wanted to confuse everyone, even the smartest police officers. He was a ghost, always one step ahead, leaving no clear clues. And even today, more than 50 years later, no one knows who he was. Why did the Zodiac Killer do this? Who was he? And why has his mystery stayed unsolved for so long? In this documentary, we'll dive deep into the story of the Zodiac Killer, looking at his crimes, the puzzles he left behind, and how he became one of America's most infamous criminals. The Zodiac Killer's first known murders happened in 1968. On December 20th, 1968, two teenagers, Betty Lou Jensen, 16, and David Faraday, 17, were shot and killed on a quiet road near Vallejo, California. They were just a couple, parked in a secluded spot, when someone approached their car and fired shots into it. At first, it seemed like just another tragic crime. But then something strange happened. The Zodiac started to talk. On July 31st, 1969, the killer sent his first letter to 3 newspapers. In this letter, he claimed responsibility for the murders of Betty Lou and David, and he also took credit for other killings. But he didn't stop there. The letter was full of strange codes, puzzles that no one could understand at the time. The Zodiac Killer didn't just kill people. He wanted to play a game. He sent more letters over the next year, each one more bizarre than the last. He even sent a cipher, an encrypted message that he said would reveal his name. The police and the newspapers worked hard to crack these codes, but it wasn't easy. Throughout the years, the Zodiac would kill more people, always slipping away before anyone could catch him. He was a shadow, a man who knew how to stay hidden. He never seemed to leave any clues behind. And even though the police worked tirelessly to find him, they could never solve the mystery of his identity. The Zodiac Killer's crimes started in December 1968. But it was in 1969 that he began to take the spotlight. On July 4th, 1969, 2 more young people were attacked by the Zodiac Killer. Darlene Ferrin, 22, and Michael Mageau, 19, were sitting in a car near a remote area when the killer approached them. He shot them both. Darlene died, but Michael survived. He later gave the police a description of the man who attacked them. Michael said the killer looked like a white man, about 5 feet 8 inches tall. After this attack, the Zodiac Killer sent his first letter to newspapers, claiming the murder and demanding that his letters be printed. The letter was filled with strange symbols, and at the bottom it said, "I like killing people because it is so much fun." The killer also mentioned his plans to continue killing people. He sent more letters after that, all boasting about his crimes and sending more codes. In September of 1969, the Zodiac sent another letter to the San Francisco Chronicle. This time, he included a cipher that he challenged readers to solve. It took weeks, but eventually, a teacher and his wife cracked the code. The cipher, when decoded, didn't reveal the Zodiac's name, but it did say strange things about how he liked to kill and how he felt powerful. The Zodiac Killer kept killing over the next few years. On July 4, 1969, he killed 2 more victims, Brian Hartnell and Cecilia Ann Shepard, near Lake Berryessa, California. This time, the killer didn't just shoot them. He wore a disguise, a hood with a symbol drawn on it and crossed out circles. He tied the victims up and then began talking to them, even explaining to them how he had murdered others. In 1970, the Zodiac wrote more letters, even sending a piece of Paul Stine's shirt to the newspaper. Paul Stine had been shot and killed by the Zodiac in a San Francisco neighborhood while he was driving a taxi. The Zodiac's messages kept coming, and he seemed to delight in taunting the police. Yet despite his constant communication, he was never caught. As the Zodiac Killer's crimes continued, the public's fear grew. His letters were read by millions of people across the country. Newspapers printed every word, every strange symbol he sent. The Zodiac had become a celebrity of sorts, not because people liked him, but because they feared him. He was everywhere. People were scared. No one knew where he would strike next. Police were working around the clock, but they couldn't find him. Everyone was trying to figure out who the Zodiac was, but the killer was always one step ahead. Even though many people tried to help solve the case, the Zodiac seemed to be playing a game with the police and the public. Every letter, every new murder, made the mystery deeper and more troubling. The Zodiac Killer didn't just scare people, he made them question the safety of their own communities. People started to lock their doors more tightly, avoid dark roads, and be more cautious in their daily lives. The Zodiac had become a symbol of fear. Even today, his name still sends a chill down the spine. Despite years of investigation, the Zodiac Killer was never caught. The case remained open for decades, with police continuing to chase down leads. At times, it seemed like they were close to finding him, but each time, the evidence slipped through their fingers. In the 1970s, police began to work with forensic scientists to try to understand the Zodiac's behavior. They looked at his letters, his ciphers, and even the places he had attacked. They tried to figure out who he might have been, whether he was a local man or someone who had traveled from elsewhere. But even with all the information they gathered, they could never get close enough to catch him. As the years went by, the case became less of an urgent matter for the police, but still, every new piece of information brought hope that the Zodiac might someday be identified. Today, the case is considered one of the most famous, unsolved serial killer mysteries in the world. Over time, new technologies, such as the ability to test DNA and analyze old evidence, gave investigators hope. Some believed that the killer might still be alive, and that new methods might finally bring the case to a close. But as of today, the Zodiac Killer's true identity has never been confirmed. One of the most significant developments came in the late 1990s, when the FBI began to work with local police agencies to try and crack the case. In 2007, a new investigation team was formed, and in 2018, the police announced that they were using advanced DNA technology to try to identify the killer. However, as of now, they have not found any conclusive evidence to bring the Zodiac to justice. Over the years, many experts and people connected to the case have shared their thoughts about the Zodiac Killer. Some believe that the killer was likely someone who knew the area well, possibly a local man who blended in with the community. Others think he may have been a drifter, moving from place to place. One expert, a criminal psychologist, believes that the Zodiac may have been motivated by a desire for attention. He wanted to be famous, to be remembered long after his crimes were done. He thought he was smarter than the police and the public, and he used his ciphers and letters to prove it. Family members of the victims have also spoken out about the case. They remember the pain of losing their loved ones in such a terrible way. Many of them still hope that the Zodiac will be caught one day, so they can finally have answers. Interview with a criminologist. One of the most troubling aspects of this case is that the Zodiac seemed to enjoy the attention. Most killers are trying to hide their identity, but he wanted to be known. That's what made him so different. Interview with the family of one of the victims. It's been decades, but the pain is still fresh. We want to know who did this, so we can finally have some peace. As of today, the Zodiac Killer's case remains open, but it is far from being solved. There have been several attempts to use new technology to crack the ciphers and identify the killer, but with little success. The mystery of who the Zodiac Killer was still haunts law enforcement and the families of his victims. While there have been many theories about who the Zodiac might be, including suspects who were investigated in the past, no one has been officially charged or identified as the killer. In 2021, a new breakthrough using DNA technology was announced, and many hope that it will eventually lead to answers. The Zodiac Killer may not have been caught, but his crimes continue to captivate the public's imagination. His ability to evade capture and the twisted nature of his messages have made him one of America's most infamous criminals. The Zodiac's legacy lives on in pop culture, in movies, books, and documentaries. But beyond the headlines, his crimes left a lasting scar on the communities of Northern California. The mystery of the Zodiac Killer may never be fully solved. But as long as the case remains open, it serves as a reminder of the darkness that can lurk in the most unsuspecting places. The story of the Zodiac Killer may not be over yet. As investigators continue their search, new information could come to light at any time. Stay informed, and if you have any information about this case, make sure to report it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you can stay updated on this case and other unsolved mysteries. Thanks for watching.